we have a middleweight class fight between Sadric A. Dumas and Mikhail Jacek in the early prelims of UFC 314 in Miami, Florida. I think that there is going to be a finish in this fight guaranteed because both of these guys have solid hands and can crack. The only problem I have here for Dumas is that I think that he does not have the same chin that Mikhail has. Mikhail has proven time and time again that he has a rock-solid chin and is made out of rock. I guess it is something that all Polish fighters must have. Not to mention that Mikhail is also bouncing around between middleweight and light heavyweight, so I think he will have a significant mass difference between the two. I think when they meet in the pocket at some point during the fight, Mikhail is gonna throw a hook, and since he has a shorter reach, he is gonna crack first, and I think that is going to be the beginning of the end for him. So my final prediction for this fight is for Mikhail to win by second round TKO. I trust in the chin and the rock-solid hands. In UFC 314, we have a big clash of ages. In case you were thinking about Jim Miller, the old vet who holds the record for most fights and most wins in the UFC. Jim Miller's a veteran in the game and probably will be a UFC Hall of Famer just for how long he's stuck around. I mean, the guy was on UFC 100, 200, and 300. That's an insane amount of longevity for a fighter. But he hasn't looked great in his last couple of fights. I mean, he's looked alright, but you can tell he's an old fighter when you compare him to Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper is rapidly improving, and he is a pretty sizable guy for 155 pounds. It's crazy to think he was at 145. But I believe 145 was too much of a weight cut for him, so nowadays, that 155 pounds will be much better for him. I mean, since he's returned to lightweight, he's won 4 straight fights, and he had a quick submission over Clay Guida at UFC 310, and he also beat Vyacheslav Borkev, who is a pretty good fighter, and that was by submission. He also dropped him and showed his stand-up much better than it used to be. I mean, Jim Miller is coming off a win against Damon Jackson, but that guy was kind of washed and retired, and Miller got brutalized by Bobby Green. So this is going to be an interesting fight. The best chance Miller has is landing a shot on the feet. He still does have decent jiu-jitsu, but not on the level of Chase Hooper, who constantly works with high-level grapplers like Mikey Musumeci. So my pick for this fight is going to be Chase Hooper to win by third-round submission. We got a number 1 contender to fight in the women's strawweight division, taking place at UFC 314 between Virna Jandiroba and Jens Heyonen. This fight is exciting because Heyonen is coming off of just 1 win and then also 1 loss against the champion, but she did shut down Tabitha Ricci, which was a big step up in competition for Ricci. I mean, Ricci looked like an absolute shell there. Could barely hit a strike. It's kind of crazy. And Heyonen looked good. But that fight was also in China. She had the home crowd, everything like that. Virna Jandiroba has been on a streak recently. She won her last 4 fights, including fights against Angela Hill, Marina Rodriguez, Lupi Godinez, and Amanda Lemos. The really impressive one was the Amanda Lemos one because this was a UFC Fight Night main event. I'm pretty sure it was in the summer of last year, and she got a submission finish, which was pretty impressive. Amanda Lemos didn't allow even Mackenzie Dern, who was an ADCC champion, to win, so that was impressive to see. Also, Amanda Lemos went to the decision with Zhang Weili. Even though she got dominated, there was no submission or anything like that, so it's very impressive. Virna was also scheduled to fight Tatiana Suarez before she pulled out, and then they gave Tatiana Suarez a title shot. So, interesting matchup. This is mostly a striker versus grappler. I have to see if Virna can get the takedown because she throws up a lot of submissions in her fights. I mean, 14 of her 21 wins in her career are by submission, and she's a finisher, which is uncommon in the women's divisions. That's pretty interesting to see that. So, my prediction for this fight is gonna be that's Heyonen to win the fight by decision in the 3-round prelims. Surprising number 1 contender fights so low down on the card. Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson is a pretty decent fight between 2 featherweights. Dan Ige is a very marvelous gatekeeper to the featherweight division because he is, I believe, 6-1 against unranked opposition. Still, he's 0-6 against fighters inside the rankings, which shows he cannot get over the hump. He was a real badass when he came on short notice to take on Diego Lopez at UFC 303. I guess that fight card took place in Las Vegas. He lives around the corner, walked in, weighed in at 165 pounds, and was ready to fight. But Sean Woodson is different. It is a completely different matchup to anyone really in the weight division because the guy's like 6'2" or 6'3". He fights at featherweight, 145 pounds, at 188 centimeters, which is crazy. His frame is something else. He's a very skinny, lengthy guy, but he shows some decent power in his last fight against Chris Padilla. But Dan Ige has some real nukes in his hands, and as a shorter opponent, if Dan can get inside the pocket, he can crack him on the chin. We saw Sean Woodson show an excellent takedown defense against Charles Jourdain in the fight that went split decision, but I thought he won. He also beat Alex Caceres, but he gassed out towards the mid part of the third round. You can't gas out against Dan or he will shut your lights off. So, there's a very close fight. Hard to pick. I'm very divided on Sean Woodson by decision and Dan by knockout. I think my final prediction for the fight is Dan Ige by knockout in round 2. We have the man that beat John Jones, the man, the myth, the legend, Dominic Reyes, fighting on this card, and he's taking on Nikita Krylov. Do we even know if he's a real person? Is he alive? Where's this guy? Man, was he fighting on the front lines in Ukraine? I don't even know, but he's back, and he's taking on Dominic Reyes to open the UFC 314 main card on this pay-per-view in Miami. I'll be honest, I haven't watched too much film on Krylov. Finally, he's a decent grappler, but he got submitted by Paul Craig, which, to be fair, quite a few have. But he has decent kickboxing too. He showed good grappling and good kickboxing. He can mix it up. But he's fighting against Dominic Reyes, who's a really good striker, but he's kind of like a glass cannon at this point, where it's like if you hit him on the chin just right, he's gonna fold right away. So I'm not sure who to pick for this fight due to the various factors, like the glass chin, the glass cannon type archetype for Dominic Reyes, and the long layoff Krylov has had leading up to this fight. So, I think I'm gonna go with the masses here, go with the more expert pick, and I'm gonna go with Nikita Krylov. I mean, that's also who I'm going with the sportsbooks here because they have Krylov as a favorite. I'm gonna say Krylov wins by finish, and it's gonna be a second round TKO. Man, I really can't wait for the fight between Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva because there is so much hype behind it, and that mainly stems from Bryce Mitchell being a complete lunatic and having the most outlandish takes out of nowhere. I mean, the guy talked about Hitler being a guy to go fishing with during the first episode of the podcast and said he was a good guy before meth. I think his takes are crazy, but I will not hate him for that or take it anyway because I'm not a Zionist. The exchanges we have seen between them in press conferences have been entertaining because both of these dudes are crazy and may have a combined IQ of 3. But I don't know which one has 1 IQ and which has 2 IQs. Bryce is a really good grappler and not so much of a striker. I mean even Kron Gracie was landing solid shots on him, so I don't want to see Bryce exchange with Silva because he will be punished for it and will get knocked out. Silva is a -260 favorite in this fight, and it makes sense because he has huge power in his hands, and his takedown defense has also held up well to this point. My prediction is going to be Gene Silva by second round TKO. We have Patricio Pitbull coming in as a +165 underdog in his debut bout in the UFC against Yair Rodriguez as the featured bout of UFC 314 in Miami. For those of you who don't know, Patricio Pitbull is a Bellator legend and 2-division world champion who also defeated Michael Chandler at 155 pounds back in the day. But now he is a bit older, and at 37, it's going to be difficult for him to make a run at the title because he has come into the UFC at such a late age, and also he will not be next in line for a title shot even if he wins. I think that both of these will be very rusty and slow to start this fight because both of them are coming off of more than a 1-year layoff, and Pitbull is going to start with caution because Yair is a very crazy and wild striker. Yair has shown that he has decent submissions off of his back, but he is also poor at defending as a whole, so if this fight gets to the ground, then he will be in trouble. My final prediction for this fight still will be Yair to win by decision by winning the exchanges on the outside while at kicking range. We got an absolute banger of a co-main event which features Michael Chandler taking on Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. I think that this is going to be the most exciting fight on the card and it's going to be absolutely fireworks. Since Michael Chandler does not fight IQ, he just goes in there and brawls, and it is what makes him the most exciting lightweight on this planet and what makes him such a crazy fighter to watch. Chandler is coming into this fight as an underdog, which is not surprising since in every fight except the Tony fight, he has been an underdog. On the other hand, Paddy has been a favorite in every fight he has had inside of the UFC. I don't see a world in this fight where Paddy finishes Chandler, whether it be by TKO or by submission. The only way I see Paddy winning this fight is by outlasting Chandler and winning on points. But I think Michael Chandler is going to win this fight, and I think he is going to win by TKO. The guy has absolute rocks for hands and can crack someone because he puts his full body into his punches, and Paddy doesn't have the best defense, so my final prediction is Michael Chandler by TKO. We are finally here at the main event of the evening. The main event here at UFC 314 in Miami is for the vacant featherweight belt, and it is between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes. Lopes has had a very quick and huge rise in the UFC since making his debut only about 2 years ago when he came in on short notice against the undefeated Movsar Evloev. He ended up losing that fight, but he went on an insane streak after that, which included wins over ranked guys like Dan Ige, Sadiq Yusuff, and Brian Ortega. His performance at the Sphere against Brian Ortega looked good, but it also showed that he doesn't have a complete gas tank when he gets into the third round of his fights. And the fighter we see at the start of the fight is not the same fighter we see in the third round. That could be a very big advantage for Volk because he can start to pick apart Lopes in the later rounds when he is tired and easily bank the rounds to go to a decision or press harder for a finish. The only problem for Volk is if he is still mentally there after taking 2 back-to-back knockouts, which tests his chin. The first round is going to be a big challenge for him, but I think that Volk has good distance management and is not a punching bag like Ortega, so he is going to be able to survive. My final prediction for this fight is going to be Alexander Volkanovski to win this fight by decision, also probably to be a 5th round TKO.